All right, can you see the screen okay? Thank you, Gianna. Okay, so we finally made our way through topic 7, which is all about quadratics and factoring and all that kind of stuff. Thanks, Gabe. Okay, so this is just kind of the review of what we did there. And hopefully this will be pretty easy for you. All right, so let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so the first one here, well, first 3 actually, says name each monomial based on its degree. So remember, when you have more than one variable, which really doesn't happen that often with the stuff we do, but you just add the exponents together. So like here we've got x, which is technically x to the first. Helps if this thing actually draws. There we go. So this would be an x to the first. This would be an x to the first. So this one would basically be a second degree monomial. So you just add the 1 and the 1 together. All right, so the next one, there is no variable. So if there is no variable, we always say that the way we represent nothing in math is 0, right? Because technically what this is minus 6x to the 0 power, okay? And x to the 0 is just 1, and 1 times negative 6 is negative 6, okay? So then this one would be a 0 degree. So a constant number is always a 0 degree. Okay. And then last one, same thing. We've got an x squared this time, so we've got a 2 here and a 1 here. Okay. So we just add those two guys together. So this will be a 3rd degree polynomial. Pretty simple. Questions on those? So if there's just a single variable, then you just find the biggest exponent. And when you have more than one, which, like I say, for the purpose of what we do, you won't see very often. You just take the exponents and add them together. So that's what we had going on here. Okay. All right, so next one says add or subtract to simplify. So again, this is just combining like terms. Yeah, the Wi-Fi's been whack lately. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I had to sit here and wait for it to get in myself, so but we're glad you made it, Taylor. All right, so again, this guy here is just combining like terms. So first thing we do, we look at the x's. So I've got 5 and 2, that's going to be 7. Bring the x along for the ride. Then we look at the number guys. All right. So I've got minus 1 and minus 3 more. That's minus 4. Yeah, it's really that easy. Okay, so the next one is negative or subtracting. We got to watch our signs a little bit. So there's 2 ways you could think about this one. You can just go ahead and leave the sign there and just remember to keep carrying it through, or you can change all the signs to start with and add it together. So I'll just leave this one for starters. So again, you find your x squareds. There's 1 and there's 1. So this is going to be 2 minus 3. So it's going to be a minus 1x, or just minus x squared, right? Then we move on to our x's. So I've got minus 4x. And this thing's not writing for some reason. So I've got minus 4x, and then minus 8x more, so that's going to be minus 12x. Okay? And then the last one here, we'll go ahead and say, okay, I've got minus 1 minus a minus 4, so that's going to be a plus 4, right? So we have 4 minus 1, that's going to be plus 3. So again, you can go term by term like that, or if you prefer, you can switch this guy to a plus, which means he becomes a minus, he becomes a minus, and he becomes a plus. And then just add them together. Whatever works for you. But I thought I'd show that other version today just for the heck of it. Okay, so the next one they're messing with us a little bit because they don't have the guys in order. So we got to kind of watch to make sure we're grabbing the right terms here. All right, so this one here, we'll start with the biggest terms we can find. That's going to be a fourth. So we've got 5b to the fourth, 3b to the fourth, so that's going to be 8b to the fourth. Okay. So next up we got squareds. We don't have any thirds, so we go to squareds. And look at that, and we say, okay, I've got 3b squared and 5b squared, so that's going to be plus 8b squared. Okay. And then the last one, we've got just numbers. We don't have a b value, so we just got numbers. So minus 2 minus 4 more is minus 6. That's it. Easy and peasy. Questions? Questions on any of these? What are we eating breakfast? What's going on here? Not that I think that's a bad idea. Have a little breakfast while you're watching this stuff. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this says, what is the missing term in the equation? Okay. So this is just kind of a twist on what we were doing, right? So notice here we have a 3. And how do we get that 3? We got that 3 from having 5 minus 2, right? So that's how we got that guy. So then the x values, this is 8x, and here we've already got 3x, right? So in order to go from 3 to 8, that means the front guy here has to be 5x. So he's going to go there. So you get 5 and 3 is 8. So literally you're just taking 8x minus 3x and getting 5x. So just a long drawn out way to kind of ask you the same thing. All right, so next one says we have a garden center that has 3x squared plus 12x plus 18 square feet of sod. Of course. We see that every day at the garden center, right? So it says 1 week they receive blah, blah, blah square feet of sod and sell blah, blah, blah square feet of sod. It says what expression represents the area of the remaining sod? Okay, so they had this much stuff to start with, right? And then they got a truckload in of this much. So basically we're going to add those two guys together, and then what we sell we're going to subtract off. So let's add these two guys. So I've got 3x squared and 4x squared. That's going to be 7x squared, right? And I've got 12x and 16x. That's going to be plus 28x. And then finally I got 18 and 60, so that's going to be 78. So this is just these two guys in purple added together, or underlined in purple, I guess I should say. Okay, so then next part is, okay, so we sold off some of this stuff, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll say, okay, so we sold off 2x squared. we sold off 9x, and we sold off 27. Cool. So then we just subtract term by term, right? So we got 5, well, I got 5 here because I've got 7 minus 2, so that's 5x squared. 28 minus 9 is going to be plus 19x. And then finally I've got 78 minus 27, so that's going to be 1. That's going to be 5, so that's going to be plus 51. So there we go. Obviously in the real world you'd say, okay, we got so many tons of sod. We received this many tons more of sod. We sold this many tons of sod. We have this much left. But they're doing it with variables because this is algebra class. But again, pretty easy. The whole thing is just being able to read this thing and say, okay, I have to add the first two polynomials together, and then I need to subtract the last guy off. And that pretty much sums it up. Capiche? All right, let's continue on. So use the distributive property to find the product. You could also call this the FOIL method, the rainbow method. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. So basically what you need to remember here is each one of these guys have 2 terms, right? So I've got 2 terms here and 2 terms here. So 2 times 2 is 4. So when I'm done multiplying, I should have 4 terms total. And then what we'll do is we usually have 2 x terms we can combine. You'll get like an x squared, you'll get a number, and then you'll get 2 x terms that you can combine. So when it's all said and done, typically you will have 3 terms. Now occasionally the x terms will cancel each other out, and then you only have 2 terms. But that's typically what happens. You'll have 4 terms, combined terms, you'll either get, most of the time you get 3 terms, occasionally you'll get 2 terms. So it follows a definite pattern. So if it doesn't follow that pattern, then you know something's wrong and you need to go back and take a look at things. Okay, so we'll start off here. We start with the first guy. We do x times x, and that's going to be x squared. All right. Then we do x times negative 5, so that's minus 5x. Then we move on to the 7. This is also just sort of a mega distributive property thing here. So then we go 7 times x is going to be plus 7x. And then finally, we go positive 7 times negative 5, that's going to be minus 35. So we have 4 terms, as predicted, right? So we're cool there. Pretty sure that we multiplied everybody together that we need to. And also, as I mentioned, what you're going to get is you're going to get just an x squared, or an x squared term, bring him down. You get a number guy, bring him down. And the 2 x guys in the middle here, we can put together. So I have 7x minus 5x plus 2x, and that's our guy. Okay. So number 16 is pretty much second verse, same as the first. Except in this case, we've got a little bit bigger numbers, but that's not a big deal. So again, we start with these 2. We do the 3 times 2, that's 6. X to the first and x to the first is x to the second. Cool. All right, moving on. Then we do 2x times 1, that's just going to be plus 2x. All right, we move on to the negative 5. So we got minus 5 times 3, so minus 15x. And then we get to the number guys here. So we've got minus 5 times 1 is just minus 5. Okay, so same setup as last time. we've got an x squared term, bring him down. We got a number, bring him down. And then we got two guys in the middle that we can put together. So I've got negative 15, and I add 2 to that, and I get minus 13. Bring the x along, collect your points, and move on. Any questions? Pretty easy stuff. All right, so next up, this is another multiplication thing, but some people like a little more a visual thing. You can do this if you like it. If you don't, that's fine too. If you're okay with what we did here, that's fine, all good. All right, so it says, use a table to find each product. I sort of call this the box method. That's what this is. So let's watch me do some bad drawing here. All right, so I'm going to go across like this, There we go. Okay, so then what's going to happen is we're just going to fill these terms in, and which one you put on the top and which one you put on the side doesn't really matter. Like I say, it's just kind of a visual of what's going on here. So I could do 4x minus 3y, and over here I'm going to have 5x and then plus y. You don't have to put the plus sign, but if it helps you, that's fine. And we just fill in the boxes. So to fill in the first box, we take this guy here and multiply it by this guy here. And then we put it in the box. So we're going to get 5 times 4 is 20. And then we have x times x is x squared. Cool. Then we move on to the next one. Then we have 5 times negative 3, that's minus 15. And this one we've got an x times y, so we just have to put them next to each other. X times y. Okay, then we move on to this row here. So I've got 4x times y. That's going to be 4xy. And then finally I've got y times minus 3y. So it's going to be minus 3. Y times y is y squared. So this is kind of like the last one we were doing, in that we're going to get an x squared term, a y squared term, and then we get two xy's we can put together. Now, the advantage of the box, it's a little more apparent when we do number 18, because we've got a 3 by 2 there. But one of the nice advantages of this is the diagonals are the same kind of term. So what we're saying there is these two guys are both xy's. So again, to put everything together, we say, all right, so we've got our x squared guy, just bring him down, 20x squared, that's his cat. And over here I've got a minus 3y squared, cool. And then the two guys in the middle, we can go ahead and add them together, so minus 15 plus 4, it's going to be negative 11, and then it's going to be xy. Okay. So if the y wasn't there, this would be 20x squared minus 11x minus 3. But we're putting the y in there, then you've got xy here instead of just x, and over here you got a y squared. That's pretty much it. Okay. So as I mentioned, this next guy, now, the thing about this one is typically what you're going to see is remember, this time we've got 2 terms here and 3 terms here. So when we multiply them together, you're going to have 6 terms before you start combining stuff. Okay? And typically what's going to happen is, in this case, you'll have an x to the third, you'll have a number, and then you'll have some x squareds and some x's that you can put together. So normally after you combine terms, you'll usually go from 6 terms down to 4 terms. That's typically what happens. Just like over here, we went from 4 terms down to 3 terms. Okay? So again, time for some more bad drawing. Okay. So then, since I got the 2 over here, I'm going to go ahead and put them down the side. You can do it the other way. I mean, that's fine. So I got an x here, I got a +4 here. And up here, I'm going to have an x squared, a -3x, and a -1. And again, we're just going to fill in the blanks. All right. Let's get a different color scheme here. Why not? There we go. So I've got x to the first and x to the second. That's going to be x to the third. Then I get x times -3x. That's going to be -3x squared. And then I've got x -1, so it's just -x. Cool. Moving on to the next guy, so we're just multiplying everybody by 4, right? So 4 times x squared is going to be 4x squared, right? And then we've got 4 times -3, that's going to be -12x. And then finally I've got 4 times -x, that's -4x. Okay? All right, so this guy here, we just go ahead and combine, guys. So we've got an x to the third, right? This last one's not 4x, it's just -4, isn't it? Yeah. There's something didn't look right there. Fix that up real quick. So yeah, the last one is just 4. I was looking at the x rather than the -1. So 4 times -1, that's just going to be -4. My bad. Okay, so we got our x to the third, bring him down. We've got our -4, bring him down. And we have 6 terms as we predicted. And then we look at this and say, okay, so the diagonals are guys we can put together. So it's these two guys. So I've got 4 minus 3, that's just going to be 1x squared, right? And positive 1x squared. Okay. And then we go ahead and put the other two guys together. So that's the minus x and the 12x. So 12x minus 1x. That probably wasn't the best color to use, but oh well. We'll be all right. So again, that's going to be 12 minus 1. That's going to be plus 11x. So as predicted, we went from 6 terms to 4 terms when we combine. So these are pretty easy because they're very sort of procedural, very systematic, if you will. You can look at that and say, okay, so this just kind of follows the same pattern every time. And once you get your pattern down, you're good to go. All right. Cool. So let's continue on. So just another way of thinking about multiplying these guys together. Okay, so this is similar to that one we did a few back, except this time we're missing 2 things instead of 1, right? So the first thing we look at and we say, okay, well, if I take 24 and divide it by 3, 24 divided by 3 is 8. So I need an 8 here. Okay? And then just to double check it, remember how this stuff, it's always multiplies to give us 24 since it's pluses. They have to add together and be 11. And 3 and 8 does, in fact, give you 11. So that's easy. And then here we've got an x squared. Over here we just got an x. So I need another x here. So then x times x is x squared. And then, like we said, the 3 times 8 gives you the 24. And if you do the inside-outside terms, you will, in fact, get 11. So it works out. So very similar to that last one we did, well, a couple back, except in this case we had 2 blanks instead of 1. All right. So next one says the volume of a cube is multiplied It's calculated by multiplying the length, the width, and the height. It says, what is the volume of the cube in standard form? Okay. So the nice part about cubes is they're all the same, right? So the volume of the cube can be just 3x minus 1 squared. Okay. That answer is perfectly correct, and I'm perfectly happy with that answer. But these guys want it in standard form. That's like so many x squared, so many x's, so many numbers, that kind of thing. So that means they're going to make us multiply it out. Really? Monday morning? What's wrong with these guys? Okay. Actually, it's x to the third, isn't it? That's my bad. I think I even said to the third and I wrote 2. Must be Monday. All right. So here's what we can do. We can start by doing 3x squared, or 3x minus 1 squared. So let's do that, 3x minus 1 squared. Now remember, when we got towards the end of this thing, we said, well, there's a special pattern to that, right? And that pattern is square first term, so 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is going to be x to the second. And then we square the minus 1, we get plus 1. Okay? And then to figure out the middle term, remember this bit? What we do is we say, all right, when you FOIL this out, this is going to happen twice. This 3x times 1. So that's going to be minus 3x. And if that happens twice, we're just going to take minus 3x and double it, or multiply it by 2. So it'd be minus 6x. All right. So there it is squared without too much problem. But now, since it's to the third, we've got to multiply this thing one more time. Okay. So I'm not going to do the box thing this time. Let's just go ahead and do sort of mega distributive property here. See how that works out for us. All right, so I'm going to start with the top ones here. I'm going to say 3x times 9x squared, so 3x and 9x. I'm going to start over here and give myself a little room. So 3 times 9 is 27. X to the first, x to the second is x to the third. Fabulous. Okay, next guy. So we do 3x times a minus 6x. So I've got 3 times negative 6, that's going to be minus 18. X times x is x squared. And then we do the last one here. So I've got 3x times 1, that's going to be plus 3x. Okay, so we're halfway there living on a prayer. All right, so next one is times minus 1. So really all we have to do is switch all the signs. We'll walk through it here. And let's get a different color, that would be good. Okay, so minus 1 times 9 is minus 9x squared. So let's write these guys down, but let's put them below and let's shift over a little bit. Reason for that is, check it out. If I move over 1 unit, right, minus 9x squared, I got the x squareds lined up. Then I do minus 1 times minus 6 is going to be plus 6. Bring the x along for the ride. And then minus 1 and minus 1 and plus 1 is minus 1. Okay, so by shifting over one like that, it's kind of helpful because then I can just sort of add column by column and I'm good to go. So here I just got the 27x to the third, just bring him down. Okay. Then add these two guys together, so I got minus 18 minus 9 more. So minus 27 x squared. Add these two guys together, 3 and 6 is 9. So plus 9x. And this guy's by himself, just bring him down. That's it. So a little bit of number crunching there, but more so tedious than difficult. Not really that hard to do. Right? Questions here? Okay, so let's do a couple more, and we'll probably call it a day there. Okay, so this says write each product in standard form. So what we really have here is these are squares. So we'd have b plus 12 squared, and we have 4x plus 1 also squared. Standard form, though, means all written out with the individual terms. So again, this is going to show us the pattern that we were talking about in the last ones. All right. So let's go ahead and FOIL. So I've got b times b, that's b squared. I've got b times 12, that's plus 12b. Move on to the 12. So 12 times b is another plus 12b. And then finally 12 times 12, which is the last one on our times table, is 144. Okay, so as predicted, what we did was we squared the first guy, right? Squared the last guy, and then notice the two guys in the middle both gave us 12b. So this was that whole idea that if they had given it to us as this, right, we'd say square the b, square the 12, and these two guys gives me b times 12 or 12b. And as you see, when we go back the other direction, you're going to get the same thing. So then we just take 12 times b as 12b, double it up. That's going to be 24b. And then same thing here. We just bring this guy down, b squared, bring this guy down, 144. And then add these two guys together, 12 and 12 is 24b. And we notice that these guys are exactly the same as expected. All right. All right, so next guy, same thing, right? So this one, you're going to do the 4 times 4. That's going to be 16x squared. 1 times 1 is going to be 1. Then we're going to have 4 times 1 and 1 times 4, so that's 4 and 4 more. So that's going to be 8x. So seeing the patterns in math always makes it easier. And we can definitely see the pattern going on here, right? Questions? Okay, so we'll knock these two out real quick and we'll call it. So notice here, everything kind of looks the same except one's got a plus and one's got a minus in both cases. So we'll show you what happens in the first one, and then we'll use that pattern to our advantage in the second one. So again, we go ahead and multiply these two guys together. So 6 times 6 is 36. X times x is x squared. Cool. And we do 6 times 9, that's going to be plus 54. Bring the x along. And here we've got minus 9 times 6. That's going to be minus 54. All right. Apparently I wrote this too big, but that's okay. And then minus 9 plus 9 is minus 81. So notice the two guys in the middle, I've got a plus 54 and a minus 54. Forgot the x. There it is. So they just go away. So when you have everything that looks the same, except one's plus and one minus, you're going to square the first guy, get 36x squared. You're going to square the last guy, get minus 81. The other two cats drop out. Cool. So in the next one, we know since one's plus and one's minus, we don't have to worry about a middle term. So really all we need to do is square these guys. It's going to be 9x squared. And square these guys. Minus 4 plus 4 is minus 16. Y times y is y squared. Boom, done. because in the middle you'd have a minus 12xy and a plus 12xy, which would drop out. So if everything has the same values as we do here, with one plus and one minus, it means we don't get a middle term, or an x term in the first one, or an xy term in the second one. All right. Questions? All right, guys, so we will continue on with our review next time. So we'll have a part 2 to this thing. I've already got attendance, so good to go there. So basically that means I'm going to shut down the recording. Thank you guys for stopping by today, and hopefully we'll see you next time.